Hey, good morning and welcome to Your Personal Health. Yes, this is a live show. You can ask questions, you can make comments, just do it in the chat or the comment section, and Dr. Burris and or Dr. Kim will respond, and we'll make sure that you leave with answers to your questions today. We're taking a little bit of a turn. We a couple weeks ago, Dr. Burris and Dr. Kim announced that we were kind of putting the COVID-19 update show on the shelf. We weren't fully turning it off, but only pulling it out if something extreme happened, and we all have our fingers crossed and we're praying that we never bring it out again, that it will be something of the past. So we're kind of turning a page in their live shows, and this is still Your Personal Health, but we're going to talk a little bit today about what would happen if, or what kind of questions would you want answered if you could have asked before, if you're a parent or you're expecting, that you could ask before your newborn has arrived. And not being a parent, I thought, let's ask Dr. Kim and Dr. Burris. And I think I see them now. They're both in the green room. I know Dr. Kim, maybe she was changing a diaper. I'm not sure, but I'm sure she's ready to go. So we'll give them a countdown. We'll bring them in. Remember, this is a live show. We'd love for you to interact. And if you know somebody out there that, hey, they're expecting a baby, maybe share this with them, because we're going to talk about some of the questions that you wish you would have asked before you had that newborn. So let's welcome them in. Dr. Burris and Dr. Kim, welcome to the show.
Hello,
There
good
they are.
morning.
Good morning. Welcome. So, we're turning a page here on Your Personal Health, and we're going to talk a little bit about, that whole idea of entry into life, a newborn. And I was just looking online for some data, and it's a lot of people. There are 3,747,540 new infants born this year. In the year of 2021, that's 11.4 per 1,000, or per 1,000 people on here in the United States. That's amazing. That's a lot of new people coming in. And I'm sure both of you as parents, you have a couple of kiddos, that there are some questions that you wish you'd asked before they arrived. Now, I asked Dr. Kim off camera, and if he feels good about talking about it, we can ask that too, or we can follow up on that. So let's start out with that. What kind of questions, you as parents, thinking back, because it wasn't that long ago, what questions, even as physicians, you wish you would have asked before they arrived?
Well, there are some things that I thought I knew before I had children, and even maybe had been taught, that turned out to be kind of not quite the whole picture, or maybe a little misleading of the assumptions that I made. And coming into having your first child is a scary thing, honestly. And so it's normal for people to go out and, pick up some books or read online or talk to friends. And honestly, I actually encourage people to do that. And what you'll find is that the more people you talk to, the more things you read, the more different opinions you are going to get. And the important take home message from that is that there's actually not just one right way to do things all the time. And that there are multiple right ways that you can go within certain boundaries to raise a healthy, happy child. And sort of knowing that at the outset, I think removes a little bit of the stress that comes with being a parent, because you're naturally worried that you're going to do something wrong or make the wrong decision and screw up your kid for life because you woke them up 15 minutes early. I mean, it sounds silly, but as a new parent, you really do have this kind of stress on you. And that's what I wish I could go back and sort of relieve for myself, was that fear that I was going to do one thing wrong and, somehow cause a you can't recover, unrecoverable cascade of events, and my child would never sleep through the night or would never eat a vegetable or something like that. So I think that's kind of, big picture wise, something that I wish I had really understood.
Yeah, I would say getting the framework of what a newborn um, entails and the average, what happens between the first month and the second month and third month are good frameworks, but every child is a little different,
Mm-hmm.
like Dr. Burr said, and every parent is a little different. And you'll find your way that works the best for you and your child. But having that initial framework is good. And I
Yeah.
think for us, at least, I was probably happier that the internet wasn't as big a deal for our first kid, even though we're physicians, because the the vast amount of information you can get from the internet is probably not helpful.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think now I have these larger frameworks that I work with, principles more, um and that's been more helpful to actually come up with decision making processes. And when you're talking about newborns, I mean, in this setting, you're talking about the practicalities of life. So things like feeding and sleeping and how you do each, how often, how much, should you let the baby direct it or should you direct it? What about noise level? I mean, it just all kind of came in together. And it can feel simpler to pick one rigid structure and just follow that. And for some people, they like that. The problem is when you start adding in more complexity. So if you have twins, or if you have two kids, or you end up, needing to move across country in the middle of your plans, um, there's a lot of things in life that can upset that rigid framework.
Mm.
And if you aren't able to sort of be flexible and make your framework work for you, it can be very um, distressing.
Well, you talk about the internet, if you will, and we joke about. I heard it. I heard it for forever. It seemed like is like, hey, they don't come with a owner's manual. There's no how to, and yet now with the internet, there is, as Dr. Kim kind of alluded to, there may be this overwhelming flood or plethora of information that always has a parent, or could potentially always have a parent second guessing. When it comes to that, who does a newborn mom or parents, who do they lean on to start getting some of that direction? I know some of this is from their family, but is that something that you, as a primary care physician, do you start having that conversation? Is it their OBGYN? Who is it that gets involved in that conversation?
Usually, people start with their family members or their good friends, especially if they have a friend who has a child a little older, so that they have some recent experience.
Mm.
I think that's probably where most people start. And then ideally, you should be able to talk to the pediatrician even before the child is born to kind of get some framework set in place and understanding of what's needed. I don't think most OBGYNs wade into the pediatrics realm,
Mm.
um, outside of maybe making some, suggestions for recovery for the mom, to help her in those early days. So I think that overall, your child's pediatrician will probably be your best access to the medical side of that knowledge base of what's the best way to do things that we understand. And if there's not one way, what are the ways I should avoid? And sort of what is that boundary or those bumpers that we want to put up that you can operate safely within?
If you're just joining us, you're on Your Personal with Dr. Burris and Dr. Kim, and we're talking today about, hey, if you are a parent or a upcoming parent and you have a newborn on their way, what kind of questions would you want to ask, or even looking back, what would you want to ask to say, hey, could I do it differently? Could I do it better? Because I don't think there's any parent alive who's going to have a new baby says, I'm just going to wing it and who cares what happens? You always want to do the very best for your child, right? Or I hope that's the case. So if you have questions, this is a live show, just put them in the comment and we'll get it over to Dr. Burris and Dr. Kim. One of the questions I do have is about 40% of newborns right now, data says that they're coming into single moms. And I'm sure that adds extra pressure. And I don't want to say this in a negative way, but, as a single mom, let's face it, there's a lot going on there because they've got a career. They still have to take care of the baby. What are there a different set of questions, different things that they might want to be ready for?
Actually, I think that for single moms, everything is complicated by the fact that they are doing it by themselves often. Not always, but for a lot of people in that situation, you may need to adjust your expectations of what you can accomplish based on the reality of the number of hours in the day and the energy level that each person has. So this is, I think, more pronounced for single moms, but it also applies to people who are in a partnership and have two, because no matter how many hands you have and how many brains you have and how much money you have, eventually you kind of get to the point where you've hit your limit of what you can do, how much energy you have. And so you need to prioritize what's important to you and be okay with your limits. So with a person who has to work outside of the home, it's okay for that child to be with another caregiver. You just want to make sure that the child's in a safe place and maximize the time you do have with your child for both your benefits. So if that includes taking a nap together, so be it.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because that's a one thing I hear about parents, first time, even second time parents. I guess every time you have a new child, is your sleep patterns are now not your own. Are there anything now with you having two children and also being a pediatrician and doctors? Are there things you can do to start creating a pattern of sleep so that you can feel rested? Because let's face it, we've talked about on other shows. In fact, last month, we talked about sleep and deprivation and that type of thing and the stress that it causes. And then when you have a newborn, it's, we joke and say, how'd you sleep last night? Like a baby, woke up every 2 hours crying. How do we start incorporating that? Or is there a way to do that?
I don't know if there's a way because there's just a bunch of needs that this newborn has. And it's about, dividing and conquering. And if it's just a single person, that's going to be tough. And so, for the most part, newborns need certain sleep and eating, but it's not necessarily every newborn is going to have the same schedule. And some are going to be more fussy and some aren't going to be as fussy. And so like Dr. Burris said, if you're a single person doing this and you want to breastfeed and you want cloth diapers and you want all these things take a lot of time. And so you're going to hit a wall eventually. And when you hit that wall, something's going to give. And so, trying to decide really what is in the best interest of everyone, not just the baby, because mom's health is just as important, because if mom gets depressed or mom isn't functioning, then the whole unit will go down.
Yeah. So I think the culture around parenting in the United States, I'm not going to speak to other countries, but here at least, is very judgmental. And it's almost like there's this expectation of a perfection, and everyone wants to give their baby the very best of everything. And this creates this unending cycle of guilt that even if a person is putting everything they have towards the care of their child, it's not ever going to be good enough, according to the culture. So there will always be someone who criticizes you because you chose to work, or that you are married to the wrong person, or you aren't married to the right person, or there's always that negativity. And so for a lot of moms, especially if it's uh, a child that's really demanding, or that you're having difficulties with, you need to find somebody who can help encourage you, because there is no perfect child, there is no perfect parent. And really it's about is the unit functioning and growing together. So for our family, we have 3 children, and each of our children have very different newborn periods. But that first 3 months is exhausting. So I think just being realistic about that, when you're not sleeping well, and you're never getting a good night's sleep and you're never catching up, this is not the time to take on a home renovation model or to start a new venture, or just this is the time to sort of survive for a few months and to really, be okay with that. Be okay with the fact that your home may not be perfect, and you may require some help with meals, or you might require some help with laundry. Or you might spend a couple days here and there just, you know, kind of sitting there and not accomplishing much. That's normal. And that's sort of what most people go through. And yet it's not what we see in the movies, or, we see these sort of like beautiful homes where people come in and they come visit, and haha, the baby throws up on you, and that's cute. But if the baby is thrown up on you, right before you needed to go to work and you're late, and it was your last clean shirt, and now the baby's crying again because they're hungry, because they've thrown up, all these things happen, and it's normal, and yet people will often feel defeated by it. So I think having someone in your corner who can tell you, hey, this is totally normal. Everyone goes through this. You're not failing. This is how it is.
Well, you talk about that as you're describing this. I'm thinking, wow, there should be like pre-parent boot camp so they understand what this is going on. Because as you describe this, I'm like, okay, that first 90 days after your newborn has arrived, it really is. It's a survival period, right? And I hear that all the time. Like sometimes friends of ours will have a baby, and I'm like, I really don't see him for, it seems like a few months. And now I understand why, is because they truly are in a survival mode. They're getting used to it. The baby's getting used to being, out here, and you're catching some winks whenever you possibly can. You're doing laundry all the time, that type of thing. I think that is really important. Are there such things that you're aware of saying, hey, we're about to be a parent, we've decided to be a parent? Are there things besides how do we deliver the child? How do we, are there boot camps, that kind of thing for parents that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of any. I think there's some programs that do a better job of preparing people for the realities of childcare. We think of parenting, and we want to make sure we have all the stuff. We want to make sure we have the equipment we need, and if you're going to bottle feed, that you have all of that ready, clothes, the place for the baby to sleep. I mean, we do a pretty good job of preparing ourselves for that part of it, but preparing ourselves emotionally for the impact of having this very large, tiny disruption in your life is harder to do, because it's really hard to to get ready for something that you've never experienced before.
Mm, yeah.
So once you've been through it, it's easier the next time because you recognize the process. But that first time, it's always kind of a bit of a shock for people, I think.
It's just why, and I have so many questions I have to ask. Would you guys come back and let's talk about this a little bit more? Because I have hours worth of questions. I know I'm not the only one that may come up, but is this why we see some parents with that? Is it called postpartum depression? Is it because of the all of a sudden they're stressed, there's no sleeping, they can't understand the baby did throw up on them, and all that kind of stuff? Is that what sometimes triggers that type of occurrence?
It's a contributing factor for sure. And you mentioned all the large number of women who were raising children alone. That is a risk factor actually for postpartum depression. And it feeds into the fatigue level, also the stress level financially. All of those things add to postpartum depression risks. Some of postpartum depression is actually genetic, and then some of it is also hormonal because there are some real mood effects of these hormone shifts that happen during and after pregnancy. So it's kind of caused by a lot of things, but certainly that adjustment period is a trigger for a lot of people, as well as the maybe real life not meeting expectations. And that's something that I think most people may be unaware that they've had these expectations, but then when they get in the situation, it's different. And so can cause some depression.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a continuum. It doesn't automatically stop, and now you have postpartum depression. Everyone is somewhere in the pre phase of that, at varying degrees. When you have a kid, it's like Dr. Burris said, very disrupting in your life, and everyone feels like, man, is this gonna ever stop, and am I ever gonna see daylight? But there is a level where when you do get into postpartum depression, it really is serious. That's something that needs to get addressed with your pediatrician and or mental health specialist, because there are some important things that occur during the first year that you want to make sure that the family unit is bonding and all that. I was going to say, probably for me, the most relevant, I guess, primer for kids is residency, where you're not sleeping, you get called in the middle of the night out of the blue, you're up 40 hours, things happen out of the blue, and
everyone is crying around you,
right? And you just survive, and you get through it. I think that's probably the best.
So you should just be volunteering as a resident assistant, just following you around, huh?
Or just sit in the break room.
That's wild. Well, Dr. Kim, Dr. Burris, I like I said, we just barely scratched the surface. And I think probably the biggest takeaways that I got if I were a new parent is like, hey, it's going to be okay. There's about 90 days there where nothing is going to be normal. You're kind of finding your way. You kind of take sleep where you can. You don't worry about the house as much as you should have or you could have before. It's just getting through. It's a survival mode, and coming out that other side is really important. And then also that whole idea of having that support, whether it's with your pediatrician, family, both, friends, neighbors, relatives, whoever can help you is really important. And then the whole thing about the mental health aspect of it. If you feel that coming on, and somebody, you're watching this, and somebody's in that situation, please encourage them to get help, because it is something that is not. It's just going to like a light switch go off probably one day. It needs some help, and I don't know about you. You tell me. But when something like that happens, it's nice to be able to talk to somebody else who has experienced that, and I realize, oh, I'm not alone. Because let's face it, we all feel like it's only our child probably who acts like that, or it's only this situation. Do you hear that very often? It's only me, so it can't. There's nobody else out there that has this same situation, so there's nobody to talk to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think when people do start to share sort of some of their struggles or questions that they have about their parenting or their child's behavior, they're often pleasantly surprised that they're not alone. That's one of the great things about there being so many kids is that you're not walking down a path for the first time. There's a lot of people around you who can help.
I love that. Well, Dr. Kim, Dr. Burris, thank you so much for being here. You've joined us on your personal health, and today we've been talking about, hey, what are the questions you wish you could have asked before your newborn has arrived? And if you're in that situation, hopefully some of these questions today we've addressed. Please feel free to put your comments or questions in the comment area, and Dr. Burris, Dr. Kim will see those and will comment back to you. In the meantime, we'd love for you to join us again next Monday at 11:30. I think I'm gonna, if you don't mind, can we continue down this road of newborns a little bit?
Absolutely.
And parenting in general. Before I let you go, I just want to ask one question. You said something about a resource would be a pediatrician, but I was just noticing here, I was pulling up some information on there. We have an incredible shortage of pediatricians around the country. And how could someone like yourself with direct primary care, how could they fill in that gap? Or is there another resource?
Well, in direct primary care, we have the ability to sit and talk with people or to answer questions from our patients that you might not be able to ask in a normal setting. So our patients can text us a question and we can get back to them the same day with an answer. And there really is no question too small. I think that for a lot of people, being able to just sort of, get a hold of their doctor when they have a question like that, rather than, just sit in fear or anxiety about, is this a problem or not? A lot of those things come up with newborns. They have a lot of odd little rashes and they throw up and they have diarrhea one day, or maybe they don't have any stool for 3 days. And so there's just a lot of those little things that here in direct primary care, we're able to interact a little more quickly with our patients about.
I love that. Well, if you are out there and you're saying, geez, I didn't realize it. I've got an OBGYN. I don't have a primary care physician. The information is on the screen. It's going across the bottom. Coachella Valley Direct Primary Care. You can get a hold of them at their website, or you can call them at 760-642 5549, 760-642-5549. And that may be your resource because, Dr. Burris, you're a pediatrician, correct?
Correct.
So you can jump in there and family health, and there's no better way to start and have someone take care of your health and your new baby's health from the very beginning. So Dr. Burris, Dr. Kim, any last thoughts before we sign off for today?
Nope.
I have plenty.
Okay. I did kind of open up Pandora's box there. I'm glad you both didn't step right in it. Hey, in the meantime, if you have a newborn out there and they are making some unusual noises, maybe they are throwing up on you a little bit, reach out to Dr. Burris, Dr. Kim. The information is on the screen, and to see if they can get you helped out with that manner and be your primary care physician. In the meantime, we'll see you next Monday on Your Personal Health. My name is Jeff Harrison, along with
Dr. Burris
and Dr. Kim.
Thank you. You guys have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.